into yourself in a lifetime for the thinking about the nature of deeply influenced along subsequent and self being analogical for the conclusion that you can be genuinely pessimistic. You saw reality driven by the blind. Will it manifest itself for the human for the illogical, the pointless of desires for you? Or what is through for your criticism of what you can find material pleasures which you give up with the fight for against the irrational will? Your defeat. One didn't attempt to strike the balance for the attempt to nothing less for the clear for hand, for the deeply thought about the issues, but never the conclusion for the unsatisfied truth of them. For you can find the wisdom of life, and you did something unlike with deviation for you, the purpose with the outline, for the people that are even happy with this world, for the be long ago, for the insightful point for the struggles, existence. It shows you the two faces of the human happiness, of the pain and boredom. We may go further to any degree for the fortunates and what the weak can be one, for the approaching for the other, for the presenting, and the fact for the more, for the less violent oscillation between the two. These reasons to only external, for the objective is its only surrounding, for the between the border, for the accountability, for the class of engagement, the insecurities and struggle and the need for the other words of the pain, for the up and the carry, the constant and often desperate battle for the stuck in the pleasure, pain with your axis in the traditional way for the science, assumed for that to be inhabited, anger and joy. Your complex is summarized by the mixture of going in for a particular time for the orientation of one for the instance of another to be according to your pleasure. For that information for the idea what you need, for this is what you have experienced for the effect for the change in the conscious reality. Particularly emotions in the cognitive wave only existed because you create linguistics and distinctions between them. For the anger's only a multitude, for the calling of them, for taking it a step to further, for the distinction of pain for what you can call for your present. The good feeling which your survival will be out of that question, which you would get away from the towards another person, providing another long-term satisfaction for it. Unwelcome and deeply essential similarities for the torturous cases and perhaps maybe the leading annihilating. You leave behind the preoccupations and maybe the retreat with the broad of thought for your creation of an inward wealth and health. And the pain cannot be escaped through the mind, but does not make the case for the breaking of the shackles in the way you least thought. Associated by it, somehow you perhaps make it sound better on paper than real life, but the word with lips and emotion is right. But there's no really hard distinction between how you live your life outside of the pleasure and the pain. It's all besides the same coin. All the same distance of ways you cause your satisfaction to others. Retreating of the mind for the completely separate link between your experience and your pain to others, though the other mind for the holistic and maybe for the managed and challenging feelings and sensations that are masked behind the inattentive mind. You can have that loop with the connection. You can find the reality for the loop, but often ignore that at its own peril. And the dissatisfaction of the existence of whether or not it wanted to deal with it will make all the difference. The effort, the intensity is more noisy for the unique insights that you're running through the mountain. Easy going to be as it may be for the exclusive. There's no fear in the mind for it to be irresistible for the lack of necessities. Those who want to copy this modern, but you can be the company easy. You can let it down, so nowhere to be found. I'll be days with words that felt the pain of the constant, often desperate. against the irrational will. One didn't attempt to strike the balance for the attempt to nothing less with a clear hand for the people who thought about the issues but never concluded for the unsatisfied. The truth of them, for you to find the wisdom of life, and you did something unlike with deviation for you. Principles outlined. I've been happy with this work for this being long ago. Cycle point, struggle, existence. Shows you the two faces of the human happiness and pain and order. We may go further. The channeling of fortunates and what we find it within yourself in a lifetime for the thinking about the nature of a deeply influenced along subsequent and self being analogical for the conclusion that you can be genuinely pessimistic. You saw reality driven by the blind. Will it manifest itself for the human for the illogical, the pointless of desires for you? And what is through for your criticism of what you can find ulterior pleasures which you give up in the fight for against the irrational will? Your defeat. One didn't attempt to strike the balance for the attempt to never mess with the clear hand for the deeply thought about the issues but never the conclusion for the unsatisfied. The truth of them, for you to find the wisdom of life, you did something unlike the deviation for you. This is the outline. Be glad and happy with this program.
These
real for something of acting. Maybe you're not what I thought you were. Maybe she was just a verb and not an action. And maybe the cause for the cause and effect, but you don't have to explain your dreams and you belong to you in your own life. You can be the opening of your eyes and experiencing yourself to be happy, to run, and maybe strike, and you can cry, and you can be sad, and you can know how to love, and you want to lovely as you are for the happiness and not being the star for deserving it. And maybe you were meant to be. Maybe you were just a genuine bad person and I'm not in the mood for it. I could be the world and I could be okay. Not for that, but it's not wrong. For the broken, it's too strong for not to find a vessel. For the preciousness of life, it's just not enough. For the weird personalities and overly weird enough. For the stress and anxiety that they give. And people must ask, why so hard to keep that promise if the world needs more of them? For they're so busy for the life and have the hate for the regret and fear that you want to be a warrior. Just to hit the rock bottom, it doesn't mean you shouldn't call it home. And maybe it's a standard change, and I speak for the condemnation, for the not the silence, speaking not to be damned, and for respect for you, for the disrespect, for still respecting them, for allowing actions and others to increasing your good manners and not to be the representation of myself. And maybe these are two words that you can change, leaving the mindsets and towards it, not to spoil the ending for the youth and the young, to be the ending for the
There's a distance between you and I and our perspectives.
Fire within the soul. This is
Context alone.
Not to create the limitations, but you should
speak. This has no room
somebody can see you inside and travel far enough. You can choose yourself. You can never find this way to come back. Private from alone, keep the best way to run. Taking you
participating within the war games.
It would be absurd
to be another actor,
hailing
another movement.
Run away from your own
only but not to be practical with the practice for most noticeably ever named inside of you. For the combination of non-fiction, subjectivity, and tough to balance a strike, but not for the calling of an action, but kind of truth telling for whether or not it's suitable. This is not the forest for the cows, the goats that stand inside of that, the sheep, the shepherd, for the immediately putting yourself in front of an eye and waterproof in the notebook inside of that praise. You can often pay for the talking of so many, for occurring of the casting of the character, for the chime inside of the observations were meant to you to be the highlight for the ironies and only working for you to be alive and the kind of pretending for you to be a poem, for you to be firsthand for the sources so you can have an occupier, for the distortion or an excuse for the mind, for you to not be with the soldier, for the crowd, for the only your bats and only not to follow, for the work and the me for the distance and didn't know it, for the perspective and not only yours but the civilians and only beneficiary, maybe for the world, for the life, for the quote, for the only for what you know, for what you say that's not, for the penetration, for the simply feeling like it, that doesn't matter, really doesn't matter, for the I could be long, saying sorry for the broken road, for the moment, for the understanding that I'm student, for the serious to get deep, for the answers that obscuring the mouth, for you to be applying for the violence, maybe for the returning of the stress, and your questions and answers and over relacing, get rid of the double meaning, for I am more than the kind of the kindred spirit, for the distance to be the training, for the not to be non-artistic, for once, for all, for one, for the collection of what you can find haunted, for the powerfulness, for the succeeding, for what we're doing, the work for this and not to be a poem. For the reading between the lines of the signs, for you to find dead questions, left like a man for the only anchoriness, anchor to be the angry, or the depressed man, for you to be melancholy, get irritable. I'm not the place with spiritual, for the not to be depressed with spiritual, but not for to be depressed, but only realize that this is the motivation, the concentration, but not the anchor. But this is the problem for I'm given for the strong link to irritability, and this is to be psychiatric for the including of all classifications, for I can find myself as the professor reducing control over the one tipper for result from the outburst, and this is the cause of symptom. This is the children, this is the adolescence, for this is the never made sense, this is the him, including yourself, but as an adult, for why not be angry, depressed like a child, maybe at the age for attacking the person with the threatening and not making it something but the conundrum and disorder of the cause and effect of the this and to be clinicked inside of patients and patients I don't have for you to be not diagnosed because people will think so long for you believing throwing all these lies into the ears and those define the fears and those peers and taking long walks off of your short streams, your afterwards remorse to go to crying for the panic attacks and news only society for the majority feeling bad for your actions, anxiety, what you find that other people inside of the mood to be relatively neglected for this is your recollection for the what your anger, your disregard for the regulations that people have their own experience in life to find their own intention, their own problems, and most frequently you, the only to make them depression, only to find you specifically taking notes on your seeking of the help not to be frequent enough for the sadness and anxiety for the patients who only wanted to kill and destroy, not for the children, not for no sake you don't want to live for nothing notable for the irritability, for the moderation for what you can find severe, the different research for you can find diagnosing for the your only chronic severe depression, but you want to smoke it anyway instead of this with the only meaning deciding to seek the help. I am nowhere for that, for the lashing out for the loved ones that I can care about, for the nothing what to do to hold and have a source of it. I improve. I want to change myself for the family and for my awareness, and I cannot be depressed and picking on the fights of what's in critical or meaning still for me to be my own life and reach and teach and go higher, seeks the levels, but not have that to deal with, for not life and the interactions of what you can find significant to those and underlying the factor will be remaining the fact for that to be lying, awakening, counseling, this is what is such a way to handle the problems in which you can find a wish for, wishing and wishing and opponent like a horseshoe for the effectiveness and the coping and mechanism of never finding, sharing experience, or the taking over the resources alone, unloaded resources, the medication which you need is a therapy, the mechanism for the coping act, for this is not remaining for the youth to be a youth or child, illness, with a mild concussion, inmates, like I'm jailed, prison, inside of behind my bars in love. Savage attack for no care and regards.
There's a distance between you and I and our perspectives. In context alone, for the second you speak of this has no room for the beginning because it makes no sense within subject for the trained eye for these to be poems and ears when I'm observing, participating within the war games and yet to be another actor, hailing another movement for this is roots, only not to be practical with the practice for most noticeably ever named inside of you for the combination of non-fiction subjectivity. There's a distance between you and I and our perspectives. In context alone, for the second you speak of this has no room for the beginning because it makes no sense within subject for the trained eye for these would be poems and ears when I'm observing, participated within the war games and yet to be another actor, hailing another. There's a distance between you and I and our perspectives. In context alone, for the second you speak of this has no room for the beginning because it makes no sense within subject for the trained eye for these would be poems and ears when I'm observing, participated within the war games and yet to be another actor, hailing another movement for this is roots, only not to be practical with the practice for most noticeably ever named inside of you for the combination of non-fiction subjectivity and tough to balance a strike but not for the calling of an action but kind of truth telling for whether or not it's suitable. This is not the forest for the cows that goes and stand inside of that the sheep shepherd for the immediately putting itself in front of an eye and waterproof in the notebook inside of that fairies. You can often pay for the talking of so many recurring of the casting of the character for the China side of the observations were meant to you to be the highlight for the ironies and only working for you to be alive and the kind of pretending for you to be a poem for you to be first hand for the sources so you can have an occupying for the distortion or an excuse for the mind for you to not be able to soldier for the crowd but it's only your path so only not to follow for the work and the meat for the distance and didn't know it for the perspective and not only yours but the civilians and only beneficiaries maybe for the world for life for the quote for the only for what you know for what you say that's not for the penetration for the simply feeling like it doesn't matter but it doesn't matter for the I can belong saying sorry for the broken road for the moment for the understanding I'm student for the seriously attempting and the answers without scaring them out for the you to be fine for the violence maybe for the return. There's a distance between you and I and our there's a distance between you and I and our perspectives. In context alone, for the second you speak of this has no room for the beginning because it makes no sense within subject for the trained eye for these poems and ears that I'm observing, participated within the war games and yet to be another actor, hailing another movement for this is roots, only to not be practical for the practice the most noticeably ever named inside of you for the combination of non-fiction subjectivity and tough to balance a strike but not for the calling of action but kind of truth telling for whether or not it's suitable. This is not the forest for the cows that goes to stand inside of that the sheep and shepherd for the immediately putting itself in front of the eye and waterproof in the notebook inside of that fairies. You can often pay for the talking of so many for recurring of the casting of the character for the China side of the observations were meant to you to be the highlight for the ironies and only working for you to be alive and the kind of pretending for you to be a poem for you to be first hand for the sources so you can have an occupying for the distortion or an excuse for the mind for you to not be able to soldier for the crowd if it's only your path so only not to follow for the work and the me for the distance and didn't know it for the perspective and not only yours but the civilians and only beneficiary maybe for the world for the life for the quote for the only for what you know for what you say that's not for the penetration for the simply feeling like it doesn't matter but it doesn't matter for the I can belong saying sorry for the broken road for the moment for the understanding I'm student for the seriously attempting of the answers that obscuring the mouth for you to be pine for the violence maybe for the returning it the drastic and questions and answers and over relacing it with the double meaning of I am more than the kind of kindred spirit for the distance to be the training for the not to be non-autistic for once for all for one for the collection of what you can find hunting for the powerfulness for the succeeding for what we're doing the work for this and not to be wrong for the reading between the lines of the signs for you to find dead questions left like a man who's only angriness angry to be the angry for the depressed man for you to be melancholy and irritable not the place but spiritual for the not to be depressed but spiritual not for to be depressed but only realize that this is the motivation manifestation, the concentration, but not the anger. But this is the problem that I'm giving to the strong things, the irritability, and this is the psychiatric for the including of all classifications, where I can find myself as the professor reducing control over the one typical result from the outburst. This is the core of the symptom. This is the children. This is the adolescence, for this it never made sense. This is him, including yourself as an adult. For why not be angry and depressed like a child? Maybe at the age of attacking the person with the threatening, not making something but a conundrum. In disorder, the cause and effect. This is every clinic inside of patients. Patients I don't have for you to be not diagnosed because people will take too long for you. Believing, throwing all these lies into the ears and those define fears and those peers take long walks off of your short stream. Your afterwards, remorse, your decline, the panic attacks and those on your society for this majority feeling back for your actions. Anxiety, what you find in other people inside of you to be relatively connected to the regulation. What your anger, your disregard for the regulation that people have their own experience in lives, define their own potential, their own problems, most frequently you, the only to make an impression, only to find you specifically taking notes on your seeking of the help, not to be frequent enough for the sadness and anxiety for the patients who only wanted to kill and destroy, not for the children, not for no sake you don't want to live for nothing notable, for the irritability, for the moderation, for what you can find severe, the different research where you can find diagnosing for the your only minor, chronic, severe depression, but you want to smoke it anyway instead of this with the only meaning deciding to seek the help. I am nowhere for that, for the lashing out, for the loved ones that I can care about, for the nothing what to do to hope or have a source of it. I improve. I want to change myself for the family and for my awareness, and I cannot be depressed and picking on the fights of what's in critical or meaning still for me to be my own life and reach and teach and grow higher, seeks to levels will not have that to deal with for not life and the interactions of what you can find significant to those who underlying for the factor will be remaining the fact for that to be lying awake and counseling for this is what's such a way to handle the problems of what you can find a wish for, wishing and wishing upon it like a horseshoe for the effectiveness and the coping and mechanism with the never finding sharing experience or the taking over the resources alone for the load of resources, the medication what you need is a therapy and mechanism for the coping act for this is not remaining for the you to be a youth or child illness with a mild concussion, inmates, like I'm jailed, prison, inside of behind my bars in love. Savage attack for no care and regards. The hindrance, taking the care. Channeling of truth, refining within yourself in a lifetime for the thinking about the nature but deeply influenced along subsequent in itself being ideological for the conclusion that you can be genuinely pessimistic for you saw reality driven by the blind. Will it manifest itself for the human for the illogical, the pointless of desires for you? Or what is through for your criticism with what you can find material pleasures which you give up in the fight for against the irrational will? Your defeat. One didn't attempt to strike the balance for the attempt to nothing less for the clear of hand for the deeply thought about the issues but never the conclusion for the unsatisfied truth of them for you can find the wisdom of life you did something unlike for deviation for you the permissive for the outline for the be alive and happy with this world for the be long ago for the insightful pointed for the struggles existence shows you the two phases of the human happiness and the pain and boredom. We may go further to any degree for the fortunates and what the weak and we one for the approaching for the other for the presenting and the fact for the more for the less violent oscillation between the two. These reasons are only external for the objective, it's only surrounding for the between the border, for the accountability, for the class of engagement, insecurities and struggle and the need for the other words of the pain, for the up at the carpet, the constant and often desperate battle for the stuck in the pleasure, pain with your axis in the traditional way for the science, soon for that to be inhabited, anger and joy. Your complex is summarized by the mixture of going in for the particular time, for the orientation, and for one for the instance of another to be according to your pleasure. Or that information for the idea what you need for this is what you have experienced for the effect for the change in the conscious reality. Particularly emotions in the cognitive wave only existed because you create linguistics and distinctions between them. For the angers only amongst you, for the calling of it. Take it a step further for the distinction of pain for what you can call for your present. The good feeling with your survival be out of that question, which you could get away from towards another person, providing another long-term satisfaction for you. Unwelcoming the deep existential similarities for the torturous in cases and perhaps maybe the leading of nihility. The depression you leave behind, the preoccupations, and maybe the retreat with the blood of thought for your creation of the inward wealth of hell. And the pain cannot be escaped through the mind, but cannot make the case for the breaking of the shackles in the way you least thought. Associated by it, somehow you perhaps think it sounds better on paper than in real life, or for the verbal lips and the emotion is right, but there's no really hard distinction between how you live your life outside of the pleasure and the pain, but it's all besides the same coin. And the thought of some instance of the ways that you cause dissatisfaction to others. You cannot control that. Was there a better solution? Maybe it is to create the inward hub, provide the cultivating a more holistic mind, the body in connection which you can pay so much attention to everybody between your thoughts. In many cases of the pain, the boredom, the guilt, the arguments and dissatisfaction between observing your body and your lies. Though the nature affects you from the experiencing it. That's done intention, you can find yourself therapeutic for the mental escape of your breathing exercises and what it reminds you of this more for the experience on a daily basis and whatever it is take to boil your mind and surface. You don't think about your body and fragments because it's automated for the parts of the awareness and the consciousness in place with the point of new direction, the pain that it brings, subjective into the internal for the working together for taking someone away. Regardless of whether or not you can find everything within your courage and the reality is, rather than selling for unfound idealism for your philosophy is understandable enough to be applied for not, but it clears out some muddy waters. The conditions in which you identified yourself with the modern biology is what step you to take further off the axis, sustaining your own pleasure for the leading to your own demise. What's something wrong for need to fix it for the tense and persistent, but only the problem solved, not prevented for the pleasures. On the other hand, for reward for continuous present, it seems to be rewarding for the leading into attain your dullness for the retreating of the mind for the completely separate link between your experience and your pain. The others though, the other mind for the holistic and maybe the managed to challenge and feelings and sensations that are masked behind the inattentive mind. You can have that loop for the connection, you can find the reality for the loop, and often ignore that at its own peril. But the dissatisfaction of the existence and whether or not it wanted to deal with it makes all the difference with the effort. The intensity is more noisy for the unique insights that you're running through the mouth and easy going as it may be for the exclusive. There's no clear in the mind for it to be irresistible for the lack of necessities what's needed for those of the ones. Cognizant and modern, but you can become the needs and you can let it down for the nowhere to be found. I'll be engaged with words and felt the pain to up and carry on a constant and often desperate battle. I'm a man, and I forget what all the sufferings are, and I'm in my thought and happy. Of course, I would die fairly. It's in a channeling of truth. You find it within yourself in a lifetime for thinking about the nature of a deep influence alone, subsequent, and itself being illogical for the conclusion that you can be genuinely pessimistic. You saw reality driven by the blind. Will it manifest itself in the human for the illogical points of desires for you? You find it within yourself in a lifetime. In a channeling of truth, you find it within yourself in a lifetime for the thinking about the nature of a deep influence alone, subsequent, and itself being illogical for the conclusion that you can be genuinely pessimistic. You saw reality driven by the blind. Will it manifest itself in the human for the illogical, the pointless of desires for you? Or what is through for your criticism with what you can find material pleasures which you give up for the fight against the irrational will? Your defeat. One didn't attempt to strike the balance for the attempt to nothing less for the clear of the hand for the deeply thought about the issues, but never the conclusion for the unsatisfied truth of them. For you can find the wisdom of life. You did something unlike the deviation for you. The with the outline. They would be loud and happy with this world for it to be long ago for the insightful point of the struggles, existence. It shows you the two faces of the human happiness and pain and boredom. We may go further. To any degree for the fortunates and what we can be one for the approaching for the other for the presenting. And the fact for the more for the less violent oscillation between the two. These reasons to only external for the objective is only surrounding for between the boredom and accountability for the class of engagement. Insecurities and struggle and struggling in the need for the other words of the pain, up for the care for the constant and often desperate battle for the stuck in the pleasure. Pain still acts in the traditional ways of the science. Soon for that to be inhabited, anger and joy. Your complex is summarized by the mixture of going in for the particular time, for the orientation, for one for the instance of another to be according to your pleasure. Or that information for the idea of what you need, for this is what you have experienced for the effect for the change in the conscious reality. Particularly emotions in the cognitive wave for only existed because you create linguistics and distinctions between them. For the angers only amongst you, for the calling of the take it a step further for this distinction of pain for what you could call for your present. The good feeling which you survive will be out of that question, which you would get away from the towards another person, providing another long-term satisfaction for you. Unwelcoming the deep existential similarities for the torturous in cases and perhaps maybe the leading of neither. The depression impression you leave behind, the preoccupations, maybe the retreat from the world of thought for your creation. If one for the taking in one's hand cannot be escaped from the mind, there is not make a case for the breaking of the shackles away from the way you least thought must run away from your own child, associated by your family. You must have anything like this for the make it sound better. Self-hate body real life, you're running toward those lips, and they think he's right, cutting down your own heart, thinking you how you live your life. Maybe something you still pain, but you do not think about nothing, but something it will never happen. It's not your ways, it's a matter of fact, it's fashion. You do not think at all for the things true, the nature of nature. You yourself will be revealed the truth of the nature of the universe. Maybe it is to create some classification of the let it go. This misunderstanding of the let out in connection with you. Pay sounding to standing out of between your thoughts. And I mean cases with pain or care. This is scripture for arguments of dissatisfaction. These are quotes, body, lies, books, and imagination, versus outwards. This is the difference in this attention from each mind. And I have to feel what's not to the same. I will need an exercise to love and expedite. This is the experience of stating makes its ways. You can counteract your contribution should not have accountability. This is the contribution for you to be a Pisces or a Virgo. Maybe the Virgo for letting go, the sun or the moon to the stars, not having a shady side. Maybe the understanding that you cannot reside for the time of being. But I'm understanding the wishing the promise, the better ways of you. Never having a support system at all for when I'm suffering. You do not care for the depression that you have caused. You do not care for none of the people that everyone else's flaws and hurting yourself with the understanding that you have an issue with your mental instability. Is the reason why you wanted to take the dimension surrounding. So look around so the people around you are looking at the world differently. Maybe the emotion and happiness that you feel are not exactly how you think. Maybe these are not supposed to just poems or songs, and maybe this is relative to just you. Or the shoe fits that you should wear it out. And what you feel like you rather than going around with your happiness. And this is because I love you. And this chance of you coming back from you and him dead. This is the rest of the brothers and carry. And I don't care if you will never cross my mind like I was walking through it like a water block and taking a school for the education of the world. I think it's okay for me to leave. This is the hope. This is the understanding. This is the happiness. This is what I'm calling. This is the sadness. This is the silence for no reason for the flesh of the muscle for the mistakes that you were given. Expressing with the gratitude and the attitude is what I have for you. You're not going to understand where I'm coming from. These are not the words. This is different become a heart. This is just an action. Becoming smart for the happiness. We're not dependent upon someone else anymore. This one when it comes from me for the spending too much time wondering why we're not good enough. We're wasting too much time for ourselves and doubling us down. We're not to step and see what's good. Whether it was a time for the head of the world, the heart's closed. Never getting a chance to look up off the ground. Seeing the sun is shining for the tomorrow's another day. For this is the words. This is the scene. This is the expression. This is the deservance. This is who doesn't. This is me trying to find and criticizing yourself for the years and have to work for the acceptance of yourself. And when it does happen, no offense, but you can find the worst type in the person with a deep understanding of what you could never turn and have the nerves spoiled and not enough for the right person for the settlement with someone who doesn't want to set up and change. This is not the quotes. This is not the poetry. This is not the poem. This is struggling for something with people all around realizing everything is your purpose and you're struggling for something. This is the understanding you might not find for the matter for the world for what you can sound to someone to a favorism. Maybe reminding you someone for the reminding of you. For the you to be the smile for the compliment for themselves and not to be the complete and hate emotions. Leave that grace for something to follow you love and maybe not have it killed one day. The lack of the means of someone to survive that. And maybe the forgiveness that go becomes for those who never had their life and taken away from the simple fact that you could be having the best day of your life and not be so lucky. I am not surrounding you and not guaranteed for y'all to act and y'all to be so present, terrified, strange, beautiful, something that you're not what I thought you were. Maybe she was just a verb and not an action. Or maybe the cause is better. You don't have to explain your dreams or your wrong to your whole life. You can be the opening of your eyes and experiencing yourself to be happy. Maybe straight, cry, maybe sad. You know how to maybe it's hard for the happiness of not being deserving. Maybe just doing that. Now not just okay. Not for that. It's not wrong. But the broken is too strong. That's life. It's just not enough. Personality, weird enough to stress and anxiety that they give. It's so hard to keep that honest view where it goes. It's so busy with life and how the hate and fear that you want to be a warrior. Just to hit the block bottles and doesn't really shit talk about it. And maybe it's just stand a change and I speak for the combination. Not the silence, not to be damned. For respect for you, for the disrespect, for the still respecting them. For allowing actions and others to increase in your good manners and not to be the representation of myself. Maybe these are two words that can change. Maybe the mindsets and towards it. Not to spoil the ending for the youth and now the ending for the beginning is only you. This is the challenge of fire within the soul. This cannot become not to create the limitations, but you should deep thought. You should deep thought when somebody can see you inside of it and travel far enough you can tune yourself. You'll never find this way to come back to the private for the love and key the best way. Who is one for the taking and one's care? That would be absurd, don't you think?
One for the taking. Who is one for the taking in one's care? There will perfectly absurd, and don't you think you must run away from the conditioning as you must run away from your own job and even from your family? You must do anything like this for the never concerning yourself, with the body, for the mentally learning to go, for the thinking and less and cutting down your own ego with thinking of your thoughts. Or maybe some of you still believe that you do not think about nothing, for something it will never happen. This is not true. It's a matter of fact, it's reversed. You do not think at all for the things the truth of the nature of nature, for yourself for the revealed, for the truth of nature, universe to be revealed. So this is the classification for letting go. This is the understanding of letting go your ego, unsnapping. This is the universe fully knowing its cousins, ignored for the enlightenment that cause when you don't care. This is scripture for the written, for the eternity. These are quotes, these are written for the books and laps, and these are for the verses I wrote. This is for difference and this is the difference between you and I, for the spirit must not be contained. I will be a lamp, and this is blood expedited. For this is the switching, for this is the unique ways for you to be the counteraction, for your contribution should not have an accountability. This is the contribution for you to be a Pisces or a Virgo. Maybe the Virgo for letting go of the sun and the moon, for the stars and not having a shady side. Maybe the understanding that you cannot reside for the dying or reading and learning, spinning and wishing upon me for the better ways, and you never having a support system at all for when I'm suffering. You do not care for the depression that you have caused. You do not care for none of you when you look at everyone else's flaws and look in your own self with the understanding that you have an issue with your mental instability. It's the reason why you wanted to take the dimension surrounding, so look around, so the people around you are looking at the world differently. Maybe the emotion and the happiness that you feel are not exactly what you think. Maybe these are not words, of just poems and songs, and maybe this is relative to just you. If the shoe fits, then you should wear it out and lift your ego and your credit and go on with your happiness. And this is because I love you. Endless chances to let it come back up with the hand of dead wrong. So that's what the purpose of carrying. And I don't care if you would never cross my mind like I was walking through it like a water sludge and taking a school kid for the education of railroad. I don't think it's okay when I leave. This is the quote. This is the understanding. This is the happiness. This is the melancholy. This is the sadness. This is the constant smile for no reason, for the blessing of the muscle, for the mistakes that it would give, for the respect and the gratitude and attitude. So I have for you to not understand where I'm coming from. This is not the clothes. This is to become an art. This is just an act of becoming smarter for the happiness of the
many days, oh so many wishes, but I never know why the don't Saturday. Should be just like all the days, but I know why it's never quite much of a Monday. They remind me of those Saturdays. You and buzz on. I turn to break through a southern pub with the truck of ice. You and buzz on. I don't know why. The picked on Saturday.